In 1947, the British colony of India had gained independence as its own independent territory. This was then split up into two states, Pakistan and India. Pakistan had mainly comprised of a Muslim population, while India mainly comprised of a Hindu population. Bangladesh, present-day Bangladesh, was formerly known as East Pakistan because of its majority Muslim population. However, in 1971, Bangladesh and Pakistan had split away from each other due to nationalism and conflicts between East Pakistan and West Pakistan. Good morning, my name is Zara Chowdhury and I will be talking about nationalism's impact on the Bangladesh Liberation War. My research question is, during the late 20th century, to what extent has nationalism had an impact on Bangladesh's independence from Pakistan? And my position on this topic is that nationalism was the primary reason behind Bangladesh's independence and its establishment as its own country. Nationalism, through cultural differences and linguistic differences, helped establish Bangladesh as its own nation. To start off, nationalism through cultural differences has impacted Bangladesh's independence from Pakistan. To start off, according to the College Board Stimulus, the article written by Michelle Gelfand states that in support of this notion, several studies have found that synchrony can promote conformity, aggression, and destructive obedience. This study promotes the idea that people are more likely to become violent and non-tolerant towards those who are different to them. Also, as conformity and anger are both found within cultural synchrony, it can be used to describe the Pakistanis' behavior towards Bengalis. Because of their difference in nationalities and cultures, because of their geographical positioning, it created vastly different cultures between the two. Bangladesh was mainly influenced by Western Bengal province in India, while Pakistan was mainly influenced by Southwest Asian countries by the Middle East. According to this table of the Census of Pakistan in 1951, 22% of the Hindu population was in East Pakistan, while a mere 1.6% of the Hindu population was in West Pakistan, proving that Bengali culture had a Hindu influence and it formed a syncretic culture between Hinduism and Islam. Meanwhile, in West Pakistan, the low Hindu population signifies that there was little to no influence of Hinduism in their culture, proving that there was vastly different cultures among the two, meaning that there was a hostile environment when it came to the true Pakistani culture. To add on, nationalism through their linguistic differences has impacted Bangladesh's independence from Pakistan. According to Dorothy Deb, the population of East Pakistan had come to recognize language and culture as a major collectivizing force that could amplify their demands to the government. This quote implies that the separation Bengalis had in their culture from Pakistan encouraged their fight for liberation. It also emphasizes the impact that language had on the Bengalis' national identity in establishing their own culture. In West Pakistan, they enforced a rule that banned the language of Bangla in East Pakistan. This proposition inflamed the vast majority of East Pakistanis, 83% of whom were Muslim, since West Pakistan had not only rejected their language on its own merits, but also claimed that Bengali Muslims were inferior simply because of their language. As both territories were Islamic, both halves attempted to unify, failing to take into account their cultural differences, later leading to linguistic differences. The failure for Pakistan to become tolerant to two different Pakistani languages increased the hostility between East and West Pakistan, and it contributed to the strengthening of the national identity within Bangladesh, encouraging them to fight for liberation of their own language. On the other hand, some claim that the major reason of Bangladesh's independence to Pakistan was the economic disparities between both regions. According to this graph, from 1952 to 1968, the per capita public expenditure of East Pakistan is lower than the per capita public expenditure of West Pakistan throughout the years that West Pakistan ruled East Pakistan. This signifies that East Pakistan was underfunded in the government due to West Pakistani policies. This economic disparity was primarily caused by nationalist movements within the Pakistani government. According to Tazrina Sajjad, West Pakistani political leadership did not see Bengalis as real Muslims, both in political circles and socially. The attitudes in this quote show that West Pakistanis viewed Bengalis as lesser and more inferior, showing that the Bengalis were in need of help from the West Pakistanis, making them make politically biased decisions towards the East Pakistanis. An example of a politically biased decision by the West Pakistani government was Operation Searchlight. Operation Searchlight was a planned military killing carried out by the Pakistani army to suppress the Bengali nationalist movement in East Pakistan during the Liberation War of 1971. Operation Searchlight is an example of a planned operation by the West Pakistani government to suppress the Bengalis and to kill them and force their nationality as well as their culture onto East Pakistanis. In conclusion, nationalism was the fundamental aspect in Bangladesh's independence from Pakistan. Their cultural differences, such as their Hinduism's impact on East Pakistan, as well as their linguistic differences, East Pakistan spoke Bangla while West Pakistan spoke Urdu, were a significant contribution to the increase in nationalism. These are my works cited, and are there any questions?
I do have two questions for you. First question, how valid and reliable were the sources that you used, and then how do you know?
The sources that I used were very valid and reliable because they were scholar papers that were academic and they were peer-reviewed by other scholars as well, so the information was very accurate.
Okay, and if you had more time, what additional research would you have conducted related to this issue?
The additional research that I would have conducted on this issue would be the present day conditions of Pakistan and Bangladesh, since we want to see how effective the independence movement was and see how the countries are doing now economically, politically, and socially.